Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we are jumping right into a massive behind-the-scenes battle. We are talking about a genuine clash of the titans currently raging between the absolute top minds in nutritional science globally. We're looking at a fascinating analysis by medical genetics professor Dr. Ahmed Steen, and man, does he break down this fundamental clash over the very food that literally builds our bodies. It is a highly debated topic, and we're going to break down the science, the arguments, and the fascinating history behind both sides of the plate, using the direct evidence presented in our source material. Let's get right into it.
So what does this all boil down to? One incredibly simple yet totally loaded question: meat or plants? Who is actually right? Now look, we're not here to preach to you or pick a side today. We're just going to play the impartial investigator. We are diving deep into the hard science and the seriously compelling arguments that both of these dietary extremes use to fiercely defend their turf. Both sides have powerful research to back up their claims, and by the end of this explainer, you're going to know exactly why they believe what they believe and how it actually impacts your own daily health.
All right, let's lay out the battlefield. On one end, you've got the keto and carnivore camps. These guys are advocating for a diet overwhelmingly based on animal fats and proteins, with little to basically zero carbohydrates. And then, way over on the completely opposite side of the spectrum, we have veganism. 100% plant-based, heavily reliant on fiber, and completely eliminating animal products. These two warring factions, they literally couldn't be more different if they tried.
Okay, let's look at the carnivore camp first. Their core philosophy? The absolute, hands-down, best diet for human beings relies heavily on meat and fat. They argue that our bodies are essentially these finely tuned biological engines specifically designed to run on animal-based fuels. And in their view, shifting away from this natural, primal state, well, that's exactly what has caused immense harm to our health and our everyday energy levels.
70. Just let that number sink in for a second. The keto and carnivore camps argue that a whopping 70%, or honestly even more, of your daily dietary intake should come directly from fats. I know, if you grew up looking at the standard food pyramid, that sounds absolutely extreme. But believe it or not, their scientific rationale for this high-fat threshold is actually incredibly detailed.
So why all the fat? Well, the main argument comes down to essential nutrients. Proponents argue that those vital fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, K, and E, are just way more efficiently sourced from animals. Plus, they make a huge deal about iodine. It's a mineral that's absolutely crucial for thyroid function and actually helps prevent certain cancers, like breast and prostate cancer. The source material points out that because of modern soil depletion and the use of fluoride and chlorine in our drinking water and toothpaste, iodine deficiency is basically rampant. So for the carnivore crowd, animal products are hands down the most reliable way to secure these essential building blocks for your body.
And here is where it gets really interesting. This camp completely reframes something we have been told to fear for decades: cholesterol. They point out that cholesterol is literally fundamentally necessary for building our cellular walls and creating vital hormones, including cortisone and your sex hormones. Plus, when you eat all this fat, your body starts producing ketones. They argue that ketones are actually a much more powerful and preferred energy source for your brain and heart. We're talking double the energy of carbohydrates. In fact, they argue that artificially dropping your cholesterol with statins can actually lead to premature aging, Alzheimer's, and a totally weakened immune system.
Now, to give you a sense of just how much historical depth this whole debate has, the source provides some fascinating historical and religious context. Over 1,400 years ago, the Quran actually categorized animal fats as tayyibit, which translates to good, wholesome, and pure things. It even notes that historically, forbidding certain animal fats to the Jews was considered a punishment. The implication there is that these fats themselves were inherently highly valuable and incredibly beneficial for human health.
But hey, the carnivore folks aren't just cheering for meat. They go actively critique plants too. They raise huge red flags about something called pseudoestrogens. These are compounds found in everyday plants, like soy for instance, that they claim actively disrupt our natural human hormone systems. They also point the finger at anti-nutrients. Basically, stuff like cabbage, broccoli, and almonds can actually block your body from absorbing iodine, which leads to thyroid issues that might be the very reason you're feeling so sluggish. On top of that, they argue that lectins and gluten in grains cause this hidden inflammation and autoimmune diseases, and that oxalates can seriously damage your joints and kidneys. To this camp, plants are basically armed to the teeth with chemical defense mechanisms that quietly harm the human body.
All right, let's take a total 180 and pivot to the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the case for plants. Vegans and strict vegetarians argue for a completely animal-free diet. But here's the kicker. Their core argument doesn't even really rest on what we're feeding our human cells. It's actually all about what we are feeding the hidden, microscopic ecosystem living inside of us.
And that brings us to a massively important definition: the microbiome. Vegans argue that our primary dietary goal should be feeding this vast community of beneficial microbes that live on our skin, in our mouths, and especially inside our colons. These microscopic partners are absolutely essential to our survival, and according to the plant-based camp, their absolute favorite food, the only food that allows them to thrive, is plant fiber.
Just wrap your head around this incredible number: 39 trillion. Think about that. While you have roughly 30 trillion human cells, you are currently hosting 39 trillion microbes. You are literally more microbe than human. So the plant-based camp argues that ignoring the nutritional needs of the vast majority of the living entities inside your body is a recipe for absolute disaster when it comes to your daily well-being.
So what actually happens when you feed your microbiome soluble fiber? Well, it acts as a prebiotic. It creates this perfectly healthy environment for digestion and literally supercharges the immune system that keeps you from getting sick. These microbes are so amazing, they actually manufacture vital vitamins like B12 and K for you. And get this, they even generate essential neurotransmitters. The source points out that if you starve your gut of fiber, it can lead to severe depression, brain fog, and just totally losing your focus at work or school. Plus, fiber helps produce nitric oxide, which is necessary to keep your arteries flexible, fighting off high blood pressure and arterial stiffness.
Now, just as the carnivores attacked plants, the vegans launch a fierce counterattack of their own against meat. They argue that meat consumption, especially the processed stuff, is directly linked to severe health issues, most notably colon cancer. On the flip side, they champion insoluble plant fiber as the ultimate protector of the gut. They argue it promotes healthy colon movement, stops severe constipation in its tracks, and actively shields your body against cancerous growths.
Okay, so the crucial point is we have these two incredibly well-researched camps making wildly opposing claims, right? But here is the massive plot twist that Dr. Sustain reveals in his analysis. While the carnivores and vegans are busy battling each other in this huge turf war, they are both falling victim to the true villain of modern nutrition. The real enemy isn't the meat on your plate, and it isn't the vegetables either. It is sugar. It's refined carbohydrates.
Dr. Statine illustrates this perfectly with a highly relatable anecdote he calls the typical Egyptian diet trap. Step 1, you start a meal with 2 to 3 whole loaves of bread. Step 2, you add a massive plate of rice or pasta. Step 3, you wash the whole thing down with heavily sweetened tea, sugary sodas, and finish it all off with sweets. And step 4, well, that is the tragic biological result: the development of a fatty liver, high blood pressure, obesity, kidney disease, and severe diabetes. It is quite literally a step-by-step recipe for metabolic disaster that plays out in dining rooms all over the world every single day.
Listen, whether you are eating a steak or a salad, if you are also consuming refined sugars, you are destroying your body from the inside out. Sugar triggers severe insulin resistance, just wreaking absolute havoc on your energy levels throughout the day. It forces the body to store dangerous fat directly onto the liver. But perhaps most shockingly, the source notes that sugar actively blocks your body's ability to absorb essential vitamins and actively depletes vital minerals. You could literally be manifesting symptoms of severe malnutrition even if you are eating plenty of food.
So, how does this all build to a final scientific resolution? After analyzing both of these intense extremes, Dr. Satine's conclusion is this: your DNA dictates your ideal diet. Human genetics are just incredibly diverse. Some bodies are genetically optimized to completely thrive on an animal-heavy diet. Others absolutely flourish on a plant-heavy diet, and some require a highly specific balance between the two. Basically, there is no single universal rule for meat versus plants. But there is one universal rule we can all take away from this explainer today. Since your unique genetics dictate your ideal balance of meat and plants, but refined sugar and carbohydrates universally destroy every single one of us, what will you cut from your plate today? It is an incredibly powerful question to leave you with as you take charge of your own focused learning and personal health journey. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this incredible dietary debate.